In the shadow of the sprawling city of Lahore, nestled between a dense forest and the winding Ravi River, stood the century-old Royal Fauna Park. Once a grand estate built during colonial times, it had since transformed into one of the oldest zoos in the country. Though its age showed in cracked cobblestones and peeling paint, it still echoed with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves stirred by curious creatures. Among the zoo's oldest and most dedicated staff was a man named Imran Siddiqui, a zookeeper in his mid-40s with a salt and pepper beard, quiet eyes, and a deep love for animals. Imran had worked at the zoo for over 2 decades, dedicating the prime of his life to the care of the majestic Bengal tigers. These magnificent beasts were both feared and adored by visitors. To Imran, however, they were not mere exhibits. They were family. It was during a torrential monsoon season nearly 12 years ago when a cub arrived at the zoo. Forest officers had found him near the Mangla Forest Reserve, barely a week old, abandoned and starving beside the lifeless body of his mother. Poachers had taken the lives of several animals in the area, and the little cub was a miracle survivor. The zoo's administration debated whether to send the cub to a specialized wildlife facility. But Imran, upon seeing the frail creature wrapped in a soaked towel, instantly felt a connection. He volunteered to raise the cub himself. He named the cub Sher, the Urdu word for lion, though the cub was a tiger. The name was symbolic, representing courage and royalty. From the moment Sher opened his hazel eyes to the world, Imran became his protector, his teacher, his father. Imran's life changed entirely. He began spending nights in the caretaker's quarters near the enclosure, bottle-feeding the cub with warm goat milk every few hours, wrapping him in old woolen shawls to keep him warm. The bond they formed was immediate and deep. Sher would follow Imran around like a puppy, claw at his clothes playfully, and sleep curled beside his boots. The local community became enamored by the story. Newspapers ran headlines. Man raises tiger as his son. School groups visited just to see the duo together. Documentarians from abroad even captured their story in a short film that aired on national television. Imran became somewhat of a local legend. Despite his fame, Imran remained grounded. He often said, "Sher saved me more than I saved him." He had never married, having lost his fiancée in a car accident years ago. The loss had left a void, and in many ways Sher had filled it. He wasn't just a tiger. He was the beating heart of Imran's existence. Over the years, Sher grew into a powerful tiger, standing over 10 feet when on his hind legs and weighing nearly 500 pounds. Yet despite his terrifying strength, he remained unnaturally gentle around Imran. They would play together, with Imran tossing meat like a game of fetch or scratching Sher behind the ears as the big cat purred like a kitten. Visitors would often stop in amazement when Imran entered the tiger enclosure without fear. "You'd think he's raised a dog, not a tiger," the head zookeeper once said, but others were wary. "No matter how tame he seems," warned the vet, "he's still a wild animal." Imran dismissed their concerns. "Love is stronger than instinct," he would say. On a bright spring morning, the zoo was bustling. It was a school holiday and families had flooded in. Among them was a young boy named Bilal, just 7 years old, dressed in blue jeans and a Marvel t-shirt. He was holding his mother's hand and pointing excitedly at the animals. When they reached the tiger enclosure, Bilal was captivated by Sher. The tiger, lying near the fence, lifted his head and watched the crowd. There was a low growl, but nothing unusual. Sher had never shown aggression in years. But that day something was off. Sher had been restless all morning, pacing more than usual, eyes darting, ears twitching. The zoo's vet had noted the unease and suspected early signs of illness, but before any medication could be given, chaos struck. A group of teenagers had thrown an empty soda can over the enclosure fence. It clattered near Sher, startling him. He leapt back, growled, and his gaze shifted sharply toward the crowd. In the confusion, little Bilal slipped through a maintenance gap between the railing and the main fence, crawling forward in innocence to retrieve the can. What happened next was a blur. With a roar that shook the zoo, Sher pounced, leaping across the enclosure and clawing through the gap. The crowd screamed. Imran, who was in the adjacent enclosure cleaning a den, heard the commotion and rushed. But it was too late. Sher had reached Bilal in seconds, dragging the child inside the enclosure with a ferocity unseen before. Blood stained the rocks. The child screamed in agony. The emergency response team acted swiftly. Tranquilizer darts were fired. Sher released the boy before passing out, collapsing beside the same tree where he once played with Imran. Bilal survived, but barely. He lost a leg and suffered deep scars across his back and arm. He was hospitalized for months. The news went viral. Tiger mauls child at Royal Fauna Park. There were protests, animal rights debates, and lawsuits. The zoo nearly faced permanent closure. Some demanded Sher be put down. Others blamed the zoo's negligence. Imran was devastated. He visited Bilal in the hospital, apologized to the family repeatedly, and offered his savings to help with the medical costs. But the guilt consumed him. His once bright eyes became hollow. He stopped speaking to the media. He barely slept. Nightmares haunted him. Sher's face, once a symbol of joy, now reminded him of blood, screams, and irreversible failure. Worse yet, Sher changed after the attack. Once tranquilized and moved to a solitary enclosure, he became cold and unpredictable. He wouldn't respond to Imran's calls. He ignored food. He growled constantly. It was as though the animal within had fully awakened. The bond they once shared began to crumble. One evening, about 2 weeks after the attack, Imran decided to visit Sher one last time, before the authorities relocated him to a remote sanctuary in the mountains. The zoo was closed for the day. The sun dipped below the trees. Imran unlocked the enclosure gate with trembling hands, carrying Sher's favorite slab of buffalo meat. Sher sat motionless in the shadows, his eyes glowing faintly. "Sher, Beta," Imran called gently. There was no response. He stepped closer, remembering the days when Sher would leap joyfully into his arms. "You remember me, don't you?" he whispered. Then suddenly, the silence shattered. Sher let out a growl, low, rumbling, threatening. Imran froze. Something was wrong. The air felt heavy. His instincts screamed to retreat, but he didn't. He took another step forward, slowly setting the meat down. "Don't do this," he said, eyes misting. "I raised you. I saved you." And then, without warning, the tiger lunged. The security cameras captured it all. Imran screaming, being dragged across the floor, blood painting the walls. By the time backup arrived, Sher was sitting beside Imran's lifeless body, panting, his face streaked with blood. Sher was immediately sedated and transported to the sanctuary the next morning. Imran's death sent shockwaves through the country. He was mourned as a hero and pitied as a man blinded by love. Some praised his devotion, others blamed his misplaced trust. Sher now lives in a secure wildlife reserve in the north among other rescued big cats. He no longer plays, no longer interacts with humans, and rarely makes a sound. It's said he spends his days lying beneath a large tree, staring out into the hills. Caretakers at the sanctuary claim he occasionally lets out long, mournful growls late at night. Some say it's grief, others believe it's guilt. At the zoo where the tiger enclosure once stood, a small memorial plaque now reads, "In memory of Imran Siddiqui, who loved beyond nature's limit, a father to the wild, a man of unmatched heart. May his spirit live on in the winds of the jungle." Visitors still stop by the plaque. Children ask who he was, and the story is told again. Of a man who loved a tiger like a son, and a tiger who could not escape the call of his blood. The zoo remains open, but no tiger has been kept there since.